Welcome back to a brand new episode of Mastering Programming. In today's episode, we're going to be creating something so cool and something super useful, and that is an image resizer using Python. Now, as you can see, I've already created like a demo just to show you what I mean. And all we will be doing is we're going to be creating a program that allows us to select any image on our computer. It will allow us to preview the image, as you can see. And then the most useful thing is that we can enter a new dimension, let's say 50 by 500. Resize and save, and we can even select any way to save it. So I will say image 2, and it lets us know that the image has been saved. And if I go ahead and open that folder, you can see that the image, the original one, it looks something like this. And after running our program, it created another image with a new dimension, the new dimension that we just created. So without further ado, let me get started. I'll show you exactly how to do this. It will be very quick, very easy, and I'm sure you will use it throughout your use. Let's get started. Alright, now the first thing that I want to do is explain to you what we have. We simply have an empty Python file over here, and we're going to start by working it. Now throughout the tutorial, I'll be importing 3 different libraries or 4 different libraries. I'll show you how to import them, and that way you can use them. Now the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to say import sys, and this allows us to access the system. We can then say from, and I'm actually just gonna copy this one because it is a bit long. But we are going to be using something called PyQt6, and it allows us to create the GUI or the UI for our program. And how I set it up is that I said from that library or module PyQt6 import all the following options. Now for you right now, this might be underlined or showing that there is an error, and in order to fix this, all you need to do is come over here. You need to go to terminal, and depending on how you set up Python, you will need to do either pip or pip3. For me it is pip3 install, and you can say pyqt6 and hit enter. For me, because I already installed it, if I enter it, it will say it's already satisfied, but as you can see over here, but for you, it will start downloading and that error will go away. After importing this, what we need to do is we need to import another module. So I will say from pyqt6.qt.gui import qpixmap. After that, we have one more, and that is PLI. So I'll say from PLI import image. Now for this one, it's a little bit more tricky. It's PIL. And the reason for that is because to import this one or to set it up or to install it, you need to come again over here, and here you will need to type pip3 install pillow. Just like this, and that way you will get rid of the error because you're installing that library. Let's continue. Now the first thing we need to do is create a class, and I think this is now better. And to do that, all I'll do is I'll say class image resizer, and inside my class I'll be passing Q widget. Now I call it image resizer because we are creating an image resizer app. Let's initialize some things in our init. So I'll say def 2 underscores init, and then 2 underscores self. And inside of here, I'll say super dot init, just like this. Now inside of here, we're actually going to start by first working on our UI. So I want to set up my window. So I will say self dot set window title, and it will be image resizer. So that is the little window at the top that pops up. After that, I'll say self.set geometry, and inside of here I'll say 100 100 400 400, and that is basically the size of my window. So first we set up the title, which is great. It will just say image resizer, and then we're setting up the location of where the image is going to appear, and also the width and height of it. After that, we can set up a default layer. So we can say self layer is equal to qv box layer. And then we want to show up that image preview. If the image is not selected yet, we want to say no image selected. So I'll say self dot image underscore label, and then I'll say q label is q label, and I'll say no image selected, and here I'll say self. So this is, if you remember when I first opened this, and I'll show this somewhere on the screen where it said no image selected before I selected an image, that's basically what we're creating right now. After that, I'll say self dot layer dot add widget, and inside of here we can say self dot image label. So now we're actually showing that image and that image label that we just created. And over here, you can see that I created the layer, but now I'm adding a widget to it, and that is the widget that I'm adding, the label. And this is basically how it's going to work. Every time we create something, we're going to be adding it to our layer. Now, after we created our image and our image label, let's now create the button. So we're going to say self dot select underscore button. So that is now the button that the user presses on in order to select an image. And we're going to say q push button, and I want it to say select image. And let's add a few things. So I'll say self dot select button. So now whenever we want to customize or add options to our button, we're going to refer to it as select button. I'm going to say self button dot clicked. So what should we do when that button is clicked? We want to connect it to a Python function, and we're going to say self dot select image. Now at the moment we're only working on the UI, so right now for you this might show up as an error because we still did not create that function. But once you create that function, once that button is clicked, it will connect to that function and trigger that function. For now it might show an error, or just in my case it might not show anything. After that, let's add now the button to our layer. It's to our canvas. So I'll say self dot layer dot add widget, and here I'll say self dot select button. And now thankfully we've added a widget, which is the button that we created, to our layer. After that, let's now add the two inputs. So we've got an input for the width and an input for the height. So to do this, we are going to use the exact same way. I'm going to say self dot width input, and I am going to say it's equal to q line edit. Now this just means it's going to be an editor or a text field basically. And we're going to say self dot width input dot set placeholder text, and inside of here we're going to say enter new width. So this is basically that text field that you enter the new width in. And after that, as you can imagine, now we need to add that into our layer. We're going to be doing this basically the entire time. So you can say self dot layer dot add widget, and here we can say self dot width input, and now we've added our width input. So try and remember what we have left. We actually just have the height and then the resize button. So let's do that right now. So what I'll do is I'm actually going to copy this for the over here, and instead of width input I'm going to say height, and he same thing. I'll just say height. Here I'll say enter new height. Now you might be wondering, how does it know which order to lay things out? And it's actually exactly in the order that you add it. So First we added our image to our button, to our layer, and then the button, and then the width, and then the input. So it's going to go vertically from up to down. There is few different things you can do if you want to have horizontal layer, like next to each other side by side. Cool. So after that, now let's add the resize button. So we've added the select button. Now let's add the resize button. And just how here we still didn't create the function for the resize button, we'll still need to create it after. So let's say self dot resize button, and I'll say q push button. So exactly the same one as the first one. Inside of here, I'm going to say resize and save, and then I'll say self. After that, I'll say self dot resize button, and I'll say clicked dot connect, and again here we will say self dot resize image. Now again, I still did not create the resize image function. We're going to create it together. For now, we're just adding the buttons and the overall UI. And then finally, the last step, we're going to say self dot layout dot add widget, and inside of here I'll say self dot resize underscore button. And now we're adding the resize button ahead. There is one more thing that we're going to do in terms of UI, and then we're actually going to start working on our functions. So the first thing is actually setting up the layout, or now showing it. So I'll say self dot set layout, and inside of here I'm going to pass that layout that we've been adding things to the entire time, which is this one, which we originally created over here. And then after that, I'll say self dot image underscore path is equal to none. There we go. Cool. Now we can actually start working on our UI. For now, however, let's actually see what happens if we run this. I think it will fail because the functions are not there. So, well, nothing happened because nothing is actually being called yet, which is cool. So now let's work on our functions. Now the first functions that we want to create is the select image function. So to do this, let's go ahead over here, and I'm getting out of the initialization now, and I'll say def select image, and I'll pass self in. And inside of here, we first want to open that file dialog that allows us to select the file. So I will say file dialog equal to q file dialog, just like this. For file path, we are going to say file dialog dot get open file name, and then inside of here I'll say self, and then here we get to show the option, or the instruction is basically on what you want. So we can say select an image. So this is now that pop-up that appears that allows you to select images or files. We're going to leave the first one as empty, and then here we're going to identify what sorts of files or what sort of images do we want to accept. So for me, I think I want to accept majority of the images or types, so I'll say images, and then I'll be putting a bracket. Inside of here I'll put a star, and I'll say dot png star dot jpg, and you can basically add whatever you want, star dot jpeg, and I'll leave that as it is. If you want to add more file support, you can. You just do it the same way that we just did it now. After that, let's say if file path. So if it is true, if it exists, if we get something in return, then self dot image path is equal to file path, and self dot image label dot set pix map, and here we're going to say q pixmap will provide the file path, and we're going to say dot scaled, and here we're going to be providing 200 by 200. So if we do receive a file, or if we can actually get the file path of the image that the user selects, we want to show it as a thumbnail, just a really tiny image, and it will be 200 by 200. You can change that how you want it to be later on. So now we created the function, and you can see that straight away here it's showing as yellow, which means, or for me at least, that means that it is picking up on that function. And every time someone selects or clicks on the select button, this function is going to run and everything in it will run. Now let's create a second function, which is the resize function. So I'll say def resize, and what did we call it? Resize image. So I'll just say resize image. Again, let's provide self, and then inside of here I'll say if not self dot image path, then q message box dot warning, and we'll say self error, please select an image first. So this is basically if someone tries to click on resize image, that button, before selecting an image, we want to have a pop-up or a warning that says please select an image first. So we're just letting the user know that, hey, you have not actually selected anything. And then we return. Now after that, or sorry, if they have actually already selected an image, then what we want to do is we want to use a try, and we're going to say new width is equal to int, and then we're going to get whatever we got from the width input. The text, there we go, and new height is going to be equal to int self dot height input dot text. And the reason I'm saying int is because these text fields actually tend to return, or they do return values in strings, and we want it to be an int in order for us to actually deal with it. Now over here we can say except. So if things do go wrong, what we want to do is we want to say value error, and then we want to show another pop-up letting us know what the error is. So we can say q message box dot warning self, and then again we're going to say error. Oops. And then we're actually going to pass the actual error. So I'll say enter a valid numeric value for width and height. We're almost done, I promise. Now let's say everything so far is good. We want to be able to save the image, the new image. So we are going to say save underscore path, and we're going to say it is equal to q file dialog dot get save file name, and here we are going to say self, and then over here we want the title to be save resized image. We're going to leave this one empty, and then again we want to be able to save the types of images that we have selected, otherwise there's no point of this. So I'm just going to do this and paste it over here. Amazing. Now we want to be able to troubleshoot. So if not save path, if for whatever reason that is not a valid path, let's just simply return, but if you want you can show another error. Great. Now finally what we want to do is we want to say image is equal to image dot open, and we want to say self dot image path, and then after that we can say image underscore resized, and we're going to say that that is equal to image dot resize, and here we can say new width, and then after that new height. After this we can simply save our image, so we can say image dot resized dot save, and then inside of here we're going to say save path. Finally, let's just let the user know that we have actually saved things correctly and that the process ran properly. So I'm going to say q message box dot information, and here I'll say self. Title should be success, and then here I'll say image saved. And we can actually do something better. We can say F for string interpolation, and we'll say image saved at, and then here we can actually provide the path. So I'll say save path, so the user knows where they saved it. Now, if we run this, nothing will happen because we're not actually calling the class. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to say app is equal to q application, and here I'm going to say sys dot argv. After that, I'll say window, and we're going to say image resizer. After that, we're going to say window dot show to show the window that we just created, and then finally I will say sys dot exit, and here I'll say app dot exec, just like this. And I just realized I misspelled this. Now it works. Alright, let's save this and run it and see if everything works correctly. So let's go back here, let's click run. Okay, so far everything's working well. This one obviously looks retarded, so we're gonna fix that. So for now, let's see. If I select an image, it shows the image over here. If I enter the width as 100 and the height as let's say 200, and click resize and save, we get the option here, resize. I'm just typing whatever. Let's click save. Alright, so everything works correctly. The only error that we have is that, sorry, the only thing going wrong is that the height field is at the top. So let's go ahead and fix that. And obviously, let's go have a look if the image saved. The image did save. We've got this 100 by 200. Let's quickly just have a look at what I did wrong for the height. So, height input. Oh, there we go. So we added it twice. If we just go ahead and replace this with height, and let me just shut this up. So now if I go ahead and run this, we get it. It's correct. Let's select a different image this time, maybe from somewhere else as well. So I'm just going to select this smiley face, and you can see that it shows up. And over here, I'm going to say 500 for width, and then I'll say 50 for height. Rest, resize, and save, and I'll say resized smile. Again, I can choose any way to save it, and you can see that everything has the title that we selected. I'll click on save. It tells the image has been saved. Cool. Let's have a look at how it looks like, and it's it's right here. You can see the width is 500 and the height is 50. And that's it actually for this program. This is how you create an image resizer program. Please let me know in the comments if you liked it and if you enjoyed it, and if you'd like to see more programs or more tutorials like this. I hope to see you in the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Thanks so much.